Climate change is probably the most pressing problem we have in the world today, but solving it is also one of the hardest jobs we have to do. Our climate is changing, and we need to do something sooner than later. In the climate change theme, we work on a huge range of topics, and we don't just work in the university, we go out around the world to try and find solutions to climate change. So, for example, we have a group working in the Amazonian rainforest. We also have people who are visiting major cities around the world to try and help the cities develop a low-carbon economy. And as the climate changes, water is going to become extremely scarce. And so one of our projects is on water scarcity and trying to understand how the climate will affect water supplies and how we can provide a solution to all those many millions of people that are dependent on water for their livelihoods. It's got to be a multidisciplinary approach, which is what we can do at Leeds with all our scientists here. And it's got to be a mixture of looking at, yes, the science and doing the models and understanding the climate systems, but it's also about going out into the field and collecting observational data to try and understand how climate systems work.
I coordinate a project called Rainfall, which works across the Amazon. And what we do is we try to take the pulse of the world's greatest forest. So we're measuring how the carbon comes in when the trees photosynthesize and they breathe in, if you like, and then how they store it and what they do with that carbon. And so it's all about how this forest interacts with the global climate system. We're very excited about what we're doing because we're working with so many partners in so many countries. But what we want to do is turn this science, this understanding, into something that other people can work with, and in particular people living in the forest and with responsibility for managing the forest. So imagine you are a forest manager in Peru, and within your area you want to know essentially how much carbon have I got. That information then is power for those people to go forward, to conserve their forest better, to manage it, and to gain themselves more resources. We're academically passionate about what we discover, and the forests are fascinating themselves. But they're places where people live, where they work, and there's millions of people who depend on these forests directly or indirectly for their livelihoods.
One of the projects which is having the most impact right now is Andy Gouldsen's project on low-carbon communities. And Andy is visiting cities all around the world to try and help them develop a low-carbon economy.
The work that's been done on the economics of climate change says it's going to be much cheaper to invest a bit to avoid climate change than it is to wait for climate change to happen and then suffer the impacts. And what we tried to do is to drag that global argument down to a city scale, down to Leeds. For Leeds, what we found was that the energy bill is £5.4 billion a year for the city region. So that's 10% of everything that's earned and made in Leeds leaks out of the economy through payment of the energy bill. But we found also that if you invest, actually it's nearly £5 billion, but that can happen over a few years, that you would reduce the energy bill by £1.2 billion a year, and that would pay for those investments in about 4 years. At the same time, you'd create about 5,000 jobs and deal with fuel poverty for lots of people too. So really what we're looking for is the ground where it's economically attractive to do something about climate change and socially beneficial as well. So it's the kind of win-wins that we're after, really. And where we find those, then you find that the politics and the finance and the business audience all get on board and enable you to make real progress in a way which is not possible if you're saying this is a doom and gloom story that costs loads of money. My success, I'm an academic, I want to have an impact. I'm not an ivory tower academic who wants to just write papers and never engage in the real world. So I engage with policymakers, and I suppose success is when you can clearly say that you came up with an idea or promoted an approach which had a big impact on policy. And our agenda is to really get things moving on cities and climate change. If we can do that, then that will be success.
Leeds is unique in that we have such a range of people working on climate, all the way from climate science to climate solutions.
Locally, we've got a lot of interest in water research. We work with a number of local companies, government organisations and charities. So for example, with Yorkshire Water, we've got a strategic research partnership with them. We've had that for a number of years. And that's been very important because it's allowed us to ensure that the research we do is very applied. And we learn a lot of lessons from that type of activity and from that partnership.
My job really is to try and investigate ways to improve raw water quality at its source. The problem we see is that raw water colour, particularly the brown stuff in the water, has been getting worse for the last 20 odd years because the brown stuff that you can see is dissolved peat. And if you can keep peat where it belongs, which is on the top of a hill, not in a reservoir, it's ultimately, I think, better for everybody.
The work we do isn't just academic. I mean, it's important because it ends up in people's bills. It's, you know, if the water quality is poor coming into the treatment works, bills go up, energy use goes up, and that actually impacts climate change. So it's a double whammy.
If you're going to influence change, you need extremely robust scientific evidence. We've worked with Leeds University on land management and water quality issues, and I think that relationship helps deliver the sort of results that will help me influence change.
It's important for Water at Leeds to be successful because that then leads to further success in that you act as a centre of attraction. You bring in new stars from around the world who want to come join Leeds because they see it as an exciting and vibrant place to work around water research.
Our multidisciplinary campaign also includes engineers, and their renewable energy project is looking at how we can make better use of wind, wave and solar energy. One of our projects is to look at aviation, and of course aviation is really critical to us all and is a feature of the modern world, but it has huge environmental impacts. So one of the challenges in this project is how we can maintain the benefits of aviation while reducing its impact on the environment. Campaign funding will help us to take on some projects that we normally wouldn't get funded through normal research councils, and we can take more risks and work on much more innovative projects.
The challenges facing the world today in terms of food security are huge, and what they need is a new set of solutions to work across a range of different disciplines, to take the advantages and the opportunities available from plant science, for example, in terms of crop modifications, genetic modification, to look at what climate models are telling us in terms of the water needs for the future, water availability, and critically to understand farmer decision making, how they're adapting to the weather that they see today and how that will change with changing climates. And here in Leeds we have expertise in all of those areas, from the crops to the climate to the farmers.
The project is trying to achieve the best way to feed the burgeoning world population without destroying the world, to put it in a nutshell. We want to keep a sustainable planet. We don't just want to rape it of all its nutrients, all its hedgerows, all its trees, all its rainforests, just because we want food. We've got to have food and the environment. So that's the sustainability we're looking for.
For example, we have researchers looking at genetic modification of potatoes in terms of making them more drought tolerant, needing less fertiliser. We've got people such as myself who are working directly with farmer groups in sub-Saharan Africa, looking at their adaptation strategies, what climate information they need, what weather forecast information they can gain access to through new mobile technologies and the like, to really advance the science.
The project is being headed up by Professor Tim Benton from the School of Biology. He is also the champion of sustainable agriculture, reporting into the government via Lord Cameron in the House of Lords. And so really, hopefully, the results of the work that's being carried out here in Leeds University will be taken through to government level. And he also represents the UK on the G20 talks. So maybe we might go global sometime.
Extra money would enable us to do innovative, groundbreaking research that is constrained by the current system whereby research is linked to specific disciplines. It would give us the opportunity to think more broadly, more widely, more innovatively, and fund a range of new and exciting projects.
I think coming back here 40 plus years on, suddenly a reality came over me that it all started here, way back in 1967. But you also realise that all the work you put in there was just that first stepping stone. And you think that was the key that opened the door.
Climate change is such an urgent problem, and it needs to be led by the best scientists in the country.
Often we come up with research which has a long-term impact, But the really big opportunities, especially when you're engaging in politics, are ones where you have to just see an opportunity and go for it.
You know, as a scientist, it's a very exciting times to be living in because, you know, the planet is changing.
We're all about interdisciplinary research, and it's the people that matter.
So how is it changing? That's kind of hence our passion to discover that.
What we see this sort of alumni donations being able to support are new and innovative ways of doing that sort of research which produces the research leaders for tomorrow.
At the end of the day, why are we doing research? We're doing research to get the results that changes the world.
So what we'd like to do is to build up our team of experts, particularly with a chair in climate science, so they really can be a world-leading team in trying to understand climate change and its solutions.
I feel that I'm giving back to a university that started me off on my career pathway. It's given me immense pleasure, and I hope will continue to do so, and I could only encourage others to join with me in doing what I've done and invest back into the university.